Thank you so much. Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here on a Monday afternoon. We're so excited for this opportunity to get together. We are here for the California Truth and Healing Fund webinar. I'm Chrissy Castro. I am Dene and Chicana, born and raised on Tongva territory, still residing here. And I am part of the Decolonizing Wealth Project team. And I'd love to invite my colleague Carlos to also introduce himself.
Thank you so much, Chrissy. Good afternoon, everybody. Great to be with you. My name is Carlos Rojas Alvarez, calling in from Lenape and Canarsie territory, presently known as Brooklyn. And I'm also a member of the Decolonizing Wealth team. And I have the privilege to partner with Chrissy Castro to support the California Truth and Healing Fund. Back to you, Chrissy.
Thank you so much. And I'm just dropping a few prompts into the chat. We'd love to see who has joined us today. So if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself by name, any tribal affiliations that you're holding, and the territory that you are calling in from. We'd love to get a sense of who's on our call today. And so while you do that, just wanted to share a little bit more information about how we're going to spend our time. And Carlos, I'm wondering if there's the Spotify might be on, because I'm hearing a background, something in the background. Just wanted to make sure that's cleared.
I think you should be set now.
Okay, great. Thank you. So as far as how we will spend our time today, we're going to focus on three things. One, we want to give some context about the fund itself. Two, we want to provide an overview of the fund, including the current priorities and the eligibility criteria. And three, we're going to hear from some of our partners at the Just Fund portal about some of the technical aspects about how to submit the application. So as we are giving this presentation, we invite you to drop any questions you have into the chat, and then we're going to collect those and have a Q&A session after our presentation. So please, while they're top of mind, feel free to drop them in, and just know that we will come to them later in the conversation, unless it's something really burning and you really need to have it answered. We wanted to hold the questions. Carlos, any other context setting you think is important before we move ahead?
I think you covered it, Chrissy. The last thing I'll say is our goal is to keep this under an hour. So we'll keep it as efficient and as informative as possible, and we'll share our contact information at the end, and you're always welcome to reach back out to us after the webinar with any additional questions or thoughts you might have.
Thank you, Carlos. Yes, we want to keep this crisp and get you the information you need, and so you can continue on. So a little bit of background on the fund itself. As most of you, I'm sure, know, 4 years ago, the Governor Newsom signed an executive order formally apologizing to California Native tribes for the state's historical and contemporary harms to California Indian people. And as part of that executive order, the governor established the California Truth and Healing Council, which was charged with really making sure that the state was properly consulting with California Native tribes regarding a truth and reconciliation process. And that the council would basically, as a result of their work, create findings and recommendations regarding the historical and contemporary relationship between the state and California Native people, with a final report of recommendations being delivered in 2025. So, we're 2/3 into the process. And in order to support the work of that process, the Decolonizing Wealth Project worked with a subset of the council members from that state council, as well as other California tribal leaders, to form an advisory committee that would oversee this fund, the California Truth and Healing Fund, which is the focus of today's webinar. Wanted to also make sure to share that while the fund was definitely inspired by the work of the state, that it is an independent project from the state. So it's meant to support and be in a support relationship, but it's actually not part of the formal process itself. So we wanted to make sure that folks understood that distinction. Also, wanted to make sure you all knew that Carlos and I play a support function to the fund on behalf of the Decolonizing Wealth Project, but the actual fund, the priorities of the fund, as well as the grant decisions, are made by an advisory board of California Native American people, whom are listed here. So I wanted to make sure you all knew this was really developed by and for California Native people, with myself and Carlos and Edgar Villanueva and others on the Decolonizing Wealth Project team, serving more in an administrative and facilitation capacity. So Carlos, I'll go ahead and hand it to you to share a little bit more about DWP, as well as what the funding has looked like as of today.
Thank you, Chrissy. Yeah, we wanted to just zoom out a little bit and share about our organization and a little bit about why we decided to launch this fund in support of this process. The Decolonizing Wealth Project, founded in 2018, is an Indigenous and Black-led racial justice organization that envisions a world where racial equity has become the norm, where new systems ensure everyone can live their best lives, thrive in their cultures, and heal from generations of colonial trauma. And the way that we tried to make that vision come true is by disrupting the existing systems of moving and controlling capital and resources. We do that by offering truth, reconciliation, and healing from the harm and the ails of colonization through three distinct programs. We do it through education, we do it through narrative change, and we also do it through radical reparative giving, meaning we model what it looks like to use philanthropy and wealth to repair harms that have been done by institutions and by systems. So when we heard about the historic California Truth and Healing Council process and the opportunities that it could afford and provide for healing and for truth and repair, we knew that we wanted to support, and we wanted to support by redirecting resources directly to California Native communities and tribes, families, and coalitions. And that's really what the California Truth and Healing Fund is about and how it came about. As Chrissy alluded to, this is our second year of grant making. And so we just quickly wanted to share with you a list of the year one grantees. These are our grantee partners who received funding during last year's funding cycle. So I'll leave it here for 30 seconds or so, just so you get to take a look at, the breadth and depth of the tribes and organizations that received funding in year one. And it was a total of 13 tribes and community organizations who received grants ranging from $13,500 all the way to $50,000. And so we'll dive a little bit deeper in a few minutes just about eligibility, what is the fund funding, and what the grants might look like. So I'll leave that there. And you can also find this list at the bottom of the fund page on our website, decolonizingwealth.com, and I'll drop the link in for the fund. You can find this list there. So for year two, for this year's funding cycle, we want to start by sharing first who is eligible to receive funding from the fund. Then we'll go specifically through the funding priorities for year two, meaning what is the fund looking to actually resource and fund. We'll walk you through the application questions. We'll call our colleague, Katie from Just Fund, to just share a few minutes about what the Just Fund portal looks like for those of you who have never used it before, or maybe have used it but need a refresher. Then we'll have a Q&A, and then we'll wrap up. So who's eligible? Of course, California Native American tribes. And please note that non-federally recognized tribes are eligible to apply if they apply through a 501c3 or if they are fiscally sponsored by a 501c3. Also eligible are California Native-led 501c3 nonprofit organizations, coalitions, or California Native-led projects that are fiscally sponsored by a 501c3 based in California. We want to take a second just to share how we define California Native-led. When we say California Native-led, we mean that the organization's board of directors and executive leadership must be majority California Native-led and must primarily service California Native peoples. We also want to share that for California Native-led orgs and coalitions and projects, we're asking that those organizations also name and provide letters of support from the California tribes that they propose to engage or that they are affiliated with. So while that's not a requirement for tribes themselves, it is a requirement for Native-led organizations, coalitions, or projects that are fiscally sponsored. We also want to share that individuals are not eligible at this time to apply. So only tribes and organizations that apply through a 501c3 fiscal status are eligible. Funding must be used for charitable purposes, and that means no direct lobbying. Funding cannot be used for efforts in opposition to other tribes or tribal entities. Grant amounts will typically range from $5,000 to $50,000. And as Chrissy said, decisions will be made by an advisory committee of California Native American leaders. So now I want to take time to go through what are the funding priorities for the fund for year 2. And I think it's important first to share that funding priorities are listed. Sorry. Okay, I think I'm hearing some noise from the participants. Okay, there we go. Well, funding priorities are listed here, and I'll go through them one by one. And they are listed in order of priority, and they can and have shifted over time as the work progresses. The current funding priorities for 2023 will be given to activities that advance truth and healing efforts for California Native communities utilizing the following strategies: capacity building and technical assistance, advocacy and movement building, and finally healing. So here's a little bit more information on those strategies and some examples of what those strategies could look like. Capacity building and technical assistance. This is funding for tribes and Native-led organizations in California interested in capacity building efforts as they relate broadly to truth and healing efforts, such as A, tribal history, research, and narrative work to document truth-telling towards healing and repair. This can look like digitizing tribal history, research, narratives, documentation of land loss, cultural items, or archival material. This may include efforts to record firsthand accounts and first-person narratives that capture oral history, clarify and correct the historical record, address grievances, and promote truth-telling. B, capacity building for tribes, including resources for legal support, capacity building for land back claims, capacity for retrieving historical documentation, engaging anthropological or scientific support to support claims, capacity building for how to create tribal land trusts, capacity building regarding tribal co-management and or other tribal planning needs. Please note that this does not include resources for the direct purchase of land, meaning, fortunately, you can't apply for a grant and use the resources to actually purchase the land. For the second priority, advocacy and movement building. This is funding for tribes and Native-led organizations in California to hold policymakers and leaders accountable to adequately funding and implementing community recommendations, including A, efforts to spread awareness and increase community engagement of California Native Americans in the opportunities for truth and healing. And that can include logistical or capacity support to address barriers to attending and engaging in the council meetings and hearings. The fund will prioritize statewide and regional organizations and coalitions that can provide awareness and create community engagement and logistical or capacity support to engage and influence the council. Can also look like B, efforts to bring together California Native Americans, either intra or intertribally, to engage with the council process or to engage in independent truth and healing work with and among other tribes. And the last funding priority listed here is healing, funding to support traditional healing programs or efforts connected to tribal or intertribal truth and healing processes. I'll leave the screen on for a few more seconds. I also want to share that this list is available on the RFP fund page that Chrissy dropped into the chat. We're happy to share it with anyone who needs it as well. I also want to share that this list is not necessarily, the examples are not necessarily exhaustive. While the 3 categories or strategies are the priorities, which you see in bold, capacity building and technical assistance to the left, and advocacy and movement building and healing to the right. These are just some examples of priorities or projects that have received funding in the past. But of course, it's not exhaustive. And if so, you believe that you have a proposal to submit that really fits the spirit of any of these 3 strategies, but your proposal is maybe not necessarily listed as an A or B option, that may be okay.
Thank you, Carlos.
Absolutely.
So I'm not seeing any questions into the chat, so I'm wondering if we can move to the Just Fund portion.
Great. So I'm going to quickly walk through what it's going to look like to apply and the deadlines, and then I'll hand it over to Katie to show us the platform. So applications for the California Truth and Healing Fund will be accepted through the justfund.us platform. And please note that you have to register for a Just Fund account to view the full RFP and apply. And it can take, depending on the capacity of the Just Fund team, anywhere from 24 to 48 hours to receive account approval. And so you'll want to make sure that you're taking that into account as you plan to submit your proposal. Proposals will be accepted at any time before Thursday, October 19th of this year, 5 p.m. Pacific time. And I want to quickly move through the Just Fund application because it is designed to be streamlined and designed to really maximize your time and make it as efficient and as effective as possible. So I am going to hand it over to Katie, who maybe can quickly walk us through the Just Fund Common Proposal narrative questions, maybe the supplemental questions and attachments we'll be asking for. And then Katie, you should have screen sharing permission to show us the Just Fund platform yourself. So I am going to hand it over to Katie.
That sounds great. Thanks, Carlos. Hi, everyone. I'm Katie. I'm our Director of Customer Experience here at Just Fund. Sorry, my toddler's having a bath, so if you hear some baby in the background, that's why. But I just wanted to say, we are in partnership with California Truth and Healing, so we want to make this process as simple as possible for you to apply. So the very first step, just as Carlos mentioned, is to register your account if you don't have one just yet. So I'm dropping here in the chat our registration link. It's just a 2-step registration process. We just need the name of your organization, whether you're a federally recognized tribe or a designated C3 entity using a fiscal sponsor for a C3, and contact information. And just as Carlos mentioned, we should be able to get you approved within a day, but given a weekend or anything like that, it could take up to 48 hours. So we do recommend just jumping in and making sure that you register right on time so you're missing no chance to apply for the funding. So just as Carlos mentioned, we are a one-stop shop. We're a nonprofit grant-making solution, and we utilize what we call the common application. Carlos, are you okay if I switch to the actual platform at the moment? Okay, perfect. I'm going to screen share them.
Absolutely.
Perfect. So let me pull up here our Just Fund platform. So when you log in for the first time, this is what you're going to see right here. So this is going to be, let me move our screen up. A little bit of introduction of what the Just Fund Common Application is, but your very first prompt will be to update your organizational profile. So I'll click on that so you can see what this looks like. And this is going to be your quote unquote common application to apply for your funding. So you'll see here, very basic information is required to sign up for Just Fund. We're looking for organizational basic information. So when you're established, your contact information, address, where you're located. Those common app questions, just as Carlos mentioned, are going to be seen right here. So mission statement, a description of your organization, a description of your team. So who sits in your team? If you want to describe your board, great opportunity to do that here as well. We give a space to update the focus areas for your organization. So the communities that you serve, where you're located, an opportunity to describe if you're a BIPOC-led organization. If you click yes, there's a variety of opportunities of how you'd like to self-define that work. In addition, here's some additional fields you can share about the work that you're doing. So the communities that you're engaging with, your organizational scope, the states in which you work in, so most likely California at this instance. Basic contact information, so we just require one person at the organization to be able to have the profile. And then a little bit about your financial needs, so your annual budget, your fiscal year. If you do have a fiscal sponsor, we'll ask for that information here so we can streamline that grant-making process for you. And that's about it. Your social media links if you want to include it. So once you fill out those basic questions, then you're ready to apply for the funding. So it's going to prompt you to fill out any missing fields, and then you're going to travel to this funding opportunities section right here. So what's great about Just Fund is you are not invited just to the California Truth and Healing RFP, but any open fund that we have currently rolling on Just Fund. So you'll see here, there's a variety of other funding opportunities available to you as an organization. So we'll just click into this one so you can see what it looks like. So just as Carlos mentioned, here's that RFP that we just reviewed for us. So you can take a look at the background for Liberated Capital, those focus areas right here in the RFP, the eligibility criteria that Carlos just mentioned, key dates to keep in mind, so that October 19th is the deadline date. We also share here when decisions will be announced, and anytime these dates are updated, you'll get a notification that those will be changed, so you can track that accordingly. And then that's basically it. So what's fantastic is you take that common application, and then any funder that might need additional information can just share a few questions here that you'll need to answer for that one-stop shop. So as you can see here, there's 2 specific application questions for California Truth and Healing, and 3 specific attachments that you'll need to include when you look to apply. So when you click apply, very simple, you'll give your application a name, that request for the grant. These 2 fields are optional, so if you want to add any additional information to make your common application stand out, here's where you'll do that. And then those 2 spaces for those application-specific questions that Carlos has just highlighted, and your ability to attach those attachments. And that is it. You'll submit your application. All that information you filled out in your profile will be part of that common app. And once you're done with that, you'll be able to track your applications in your application section, drafts that you've started. You can always come back to it at a different time. You can take that same common application and then apply it to any other funding opportunity on the platform as well. So I'm going to pause here because I talk fast, and I know that was a lot of information. So if there's any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat, and I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you so much, Katie.
Great. I'll stop sharing so you can go back to it, Carlos. Thank you.
Great. And as Katie said, please, if you have any questions that are specific to the Just Fund platform, drop them in the chat and we'll address them shortly when we get to Q&A. So I want to just double click into what Katie spoke about. On this page, you'll see, again, the 4 common proposal narrative questions that Just Fund will ask all applicants to fill out. First one is proposal summary. So think of this like a tweet. Please tell us about the mission of this proposal in a couple of sentences. And the proposal summary should connect your proposal mission to at least one of the funding priorities listed under the California Truth and Healing Fund. The proposal description is a little bit more in-depth. Tell us about your proposal. Please be sure to include information about the tribe and or tribes your proposal will serve, and how it is related to at least one of the funding priorities listed under the fund. The third is a team description. So this is your opportunity to tell us about who comprises the team, including any external partners that will be or are proposed to be part of the project. And again, please remember that the proposing organization's board of directors and executive leadership must demonstrably be majority California native-led and must primarily service California natives. And the 4th common proposal question will be about the financial need. This is an opportunity to both provide the figure and describe what you might use the funding for. Then there will be 2 supplemental questions as Katie described. The first question reads as follows. The mission of the California Truth and Healing Council is to bear witness to, record, and examine existing documentation of and receive California Native American narratives regarding the historical relationship between the state of California and California Native Americans in order to clarify the historical record of such relationship in the spirit of truth and healing. Given that, how does your proposal align with this mission, and how do you plan to engage community members in this work? And the second supplemental question asks, other than financial, what barriers are you facing to fully participate in this opportunity for truth and healing? And what strategies are you considering to overcome them? When it comes to the attachments required, we are asking for 2 to 3 attachments, depending on who you are. Leadership and team bios are required for all applicants. And again, please remember the California Native-led majority definition under the fund. The second attachment is program budget and a work plan for your project. And again, that's required for all applicants. The third attachment is required not for tribes that are applying directly, but for Native-led nonprofit organizations, coalitions, or projects fiscally sponsored by a 501c3. And that is letters of support from the California tribe or tribes, or tribal affiliated references for the work that you plan to do. So again, all applicants will be required to submit leadership and team bios, the program budget and work plan. And if you are not applying directly as a tribe, but as an organization, coalition, or project, you will be asked to submit any letters of support from California tribes or tribally affiliated references. Great, I think we've reached the end of sharing the information. Thank you all so much for your patience. And so we just want to create a few minutes here for some Q&A. Before we do that, we do want to let you know that you can reach us at any time. If you have questions specific to the RFP and the fund, you can feel free to email me and Chrissy at carlos@decolonizingwealth.com. If you want to reach Katie or a member of the Just Fund team for any questions that are specific to the platform Just Fund, where you will be submitting the proposal, you can email info@justfund.us. And after the webinar, in a couple of days, we'll send some helpful links for you, including a recording of this webinar, as well as the slides, the RFP and the fund website, as well as a document that contains some frequently asked questions. Hand it over to you, Chrissy.
Thank you, Carlos. So I know we've gone through things pretty quickly, and just want to encourage everyone that's on the call today. If you have a question, we really do invite you to ask us, even if it's repeating something that we said earlier, or if you're not quite certain about any part of the funding, whether it's eligibility requirements or the priorities. We would really love to hear your questions to make sure you have all the information you need to submit an application. So I'd love to open it up now. You can either drop your question into the chat or just go ahead and unmute yourself and ask us verbally as well. Okay. So I am going to interpret the silence as you have all the information that you need, and you know how to reach us. Please don't hesitate to reach out. We would love to make sure that you have everything, all your questions answered before you, as you consider whether you'll submit, and then if you have any questions about your submission. So, okay, great. There's one question. Hi, this question is that California Indian Manpower Consortium is a consortium that consists of 89 tribes throughout California. If we were to apply, do we need a letter of support from each member tribe for this application? Carlos, do you want to take that question?
Absolutely, I can I can jump in here. And thank you for that question, Jovel. The answer is no. We're not going to ask you to collect letters of support from 89 tribes. And this is a very special case. And so I would say that, it would be great should your organization decide that it qualifies and wants to proceed to submit a proposal. it could be interesting to figure out maybe one letter that is written and signed by your board of directors or your leadership that maybe on good faith, right, expresses and shares the work that you do with those 89 tribes, and that they are faithfully represented in the work that you do. And I think for our advisory committee, one letter that sort of shows that will likely be sufficient to meet that criteria.
Thank you, Jovel. I'm happy to hear that was helpful for clarification. Any other questions? Okay. So I really want to thank everybody for your time. Really encourage you to reach out with any other questions you might be holding. And we just are here to support. So please reach out to us at carlos@decolonizingwealth.com or at info@justfund.us. And otherwise, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Monday evening. And we hope to see a lot of applications come in for this round of funding.